I met him on the worst day of my life, which, considering my history, was honestly impressive. I was sitting on the edge of a rooftop, legs dangling over nothing, staring at a city that didn't care whether I stayed or disappeared. The wind was cold, sharp enough to sting, but I barely felt it. I rarely felt things properly anymore, not the way people are supposed to. That's probably why I laughed. Not because anything was funny, just because it was easier than admitting that I had no idea what I was doing up there. I expected something more dramatic, a voice said behind me. I blinked slowly, turning my head just enough to see him. Tall, dark, annoyingly composed. The kind of man who looked like he belonged in control of every situation he walked into, which made him completely out of place here. Sorry to disappoint, I said, my voice light, almost bored. Should I cry, maybe scream a little, really sell the moment? He didn't move closer. Didn't panic. Didn't even look particularly concerned. You look like you're about to make a bad decision, he said. I smiled at that, because of course I did. That's kind of my thing. A pause. Then, I can tell. Road. I turned a little more, studying him properly now. There was something about the way he stood, still, grounded, like the world didn't shake him the way it did everyone else. I didn't like that. Or maybe I did. That was worse. And you, I asked. You always interrupt strangers having existential crises, or am I just lucky? Unlucky, he corrected. I laughed. Actually laughed this time. Short, sharp, real. Wow, that's harsh, we just met. You're still here. So are you. Another pause. This one longer. Quieter. He stepped closer then, not enough to invade my space, just enough that I was aware of him in a way I hadn't been before. You shouldn't be up here alone, he said. I tilted my head slightly. And you shouldn't be telling me what to do, but here we are. I'm not telling you what to do. Then what are you doing? His gaze held mine. Steady. Unmoving. Waiting. That wasn't the answer I expected. For what? I asked. For you to decide not to fall. I blinked. Once. Twice. Then I smiled again, because that's what I do when something gets too real. You're very confident, I said. What if I do? Then I'll be right here when you regret it. Something in my chest tightened. Annoying. Unwelcome. Dangerous. I looked away first, back at the city, back at the drop, back at the version of myself that had climbed up here thinking it didn't matter what happened next. But now, there was him, standing behind me like he had no intention of leaving. Like he had already decided something I hadn't. You're weird, I muttered. So I've been told. I exhaled slowly, my grip tightening slightly against the edge beneath me. Do you ever leave people alone? Yes. But not me. No. I shook my head, letting out a quiet breath that almost felt like something else. Something lighter. Something unfamiliar. Great, I said. Just what I needed, a persistent stranger with a hero complex. I'm not a hero. I glanced back at him. Something in his expression had shifted. Not softer. Not exactly. Just honest. Good, I said quietly, because I don't need saving. I know. That caught me off guard. You do, I asked. Yes. Then why are you still here? Another pause. Then, because you shouldn't be alone. The words landed heavier than they should have. Because that wasn't concern. That wasn't obligation. That was something else. Something I didn't know how to deal with. So I did what I always do. I smiled. Careful, I said lightly. You're starting to sound like you care. I don't. Good, I replied quickly. That would be a terrible idea. But as I slid back from the edge, pulling myself onto solid ground without looking at him, I realized something I didn't want to admit. He hadn't moved, hadn't reached for me, hadn't forced anything. He just stayed. And for some reason, that mattered more than anything else he could have done. I thought I'd never see him again. That would have been the logical outcome. A strange man on a rooftop, a brief moment of questionable life choices, a conversation I would pretend didn't matter by the next morning. That's how these things usually go. Except logic has never really liked me. I noticed him again 3 days later. Not immediately. That would have been too obvious. It was the kind of noticing that happens slowly, like something at the edge of your vision that refuses to go away no matter how many times you ignore it. A presence. Familiar. Unwanted. Maybe a little expected. I was at a cafe, sitting by the window, stirring my coffee long after the sugar had already dissolved. Thinking. Or more accurately, avoiding thinking. Same thing. That's not helping. I froze. Didn't look up. Didn't react. Because if I ignored it, maybe he wasn't real. Maybe I imagined him. Maybe I was finally losing it. You're going to wear a hole through the cup. I sighed, slowly lifting my gaze. And there he was. Of course he was. Standing like he had every right to be there. Like this wasn't strange at all. Like showing up uninvited was a completely normal personality trait. You again, I said flatly. Yes. That wasn't excitement, by the way. I know. I narrowed my eyes. You're very confident for someone who keeps appearing where I am. I don't appear. You just magically exist in my vicinity. Yes. You're annoying. I've been told. I leaned back slightly, crossing my arms. Are you following me? No. You're lying. I'm not. Then explain this. A pause. Then. I'm here. I stared at him. Wow, incredible explanation. Very detailed, really cleared things up. He didn't react. Didn't even try. Which somehow made it worse. Do you want something? I asked. No. Then why are you talking to me? You were about to make a bad decision. I blinked. Looked down at my coffee. Then back at him. I'm drinking caffeine, not jumping off a building. You skipped breakfast. I froze. What? You didn't eat this morning. My eyes narrowed slowly. And how exactly would you know that? You look like you didn't. That's not an answer. It is. It's a bad one. He didn't argue. Didn't need to. Because the worst part. He wasn't wrong. I exhaled sharply, pushing my coffee aside. Okay, new rule. He said nothing. Stop noticing things. No. Stop it. No. Stop it, or I will make your life very difficult. A pause. Then. I doubt that. I smiled. Sweet. Dangerous. Oh, you should. I stood up abruptly, grabbing my bag. Where are you going? He asked. Somewhere you're not. I'll come with you. No, you won't. Yes, I will. I turned, walking toward the door without waiting for him. Because obviously. He followed. Do you ever take a hint? I asked, glancing back at him as we stepped onto the street. Yes. But not from me. No. Why? He didn't answer immediately. Which meant he was thinking. Which meant I probably wouldn't like whatever came next. Because you're not fine. The words hit harder than they should have. I scoffed, looking away quickly. You don't know me. I don't need to. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. Of course it was. Nothing with him ever was. I kept walking. Faster this time. Like I could outrun the conversation. Like I could outrun him. I couldn't. You should eat, he said after a moment. I should be left alone. No. Why not? Because you won't take care of yourself. I stopped, turned, looked at him properly. Wow, I said softly. You're really committed to this whole annoying stranger thing. I'm not a stranger. I raised a brow. I don't even know your name. Elias. I paused. The name settled somewhere I didn't expect. Too easily. Too naturally. Ivy, I said after a second. I know. I blinked. That's unsettling. Yes. Silence fell between us. Not awkward. Not comfortable. Just there. Are you going to keep doing this? I asked finally. Yes. For how long? As long as necessary. That's vague and slightly threatening. It's accurate. I stared at him for a second longer, then shook my head, turning away again. Fine, I muttered, but if you're going to follow me around, you're buying me food. A pause. Then, no. I laughed. Because of course. Of course he said no. And as we kept walking, him just behind me, steady and impossible to shake, I realized something I didn't want to admit. He hadn't left. Not after the rooftop. Not after I pushed him away. Not after I made it clear he shouldn't be here. And for some reason, that made something inside me feel a little less empty. Which was dangerous. Because people who stay, they're the ones who hurt the most when they leave. I tried to ignore him. That was my first mistake. Because ignoring Elias Carter was like ignoring gravity. Possible for a few seconds, maybe, but eventually everything pulls back to him anyway. You're doing it again. I didn't look up from my phone. Doing what? Avoiding. I'm texting. You're typing the same sentence over and over. I froze. Then slowly deleted the message. You're making that up. I'm not. You're creepy. You're transparent. I exhaled sharply, shoving my phone into my bag. You know what? I liked you better when you were quiet. I was always quiet. You were less observant. No, you were less aware. I stared at him. He stared back. Unbothered. As always. The problem with Elias wasn't just that he noticed things. It was that he noticed the right things. The ones I worked very hard to hide. We were sitting on a bench in a park I didn't remember choosing. That was happening more often lately. I'd go somewhere, and he'd already be there. Or he'd follow. Or he'd just appear. I wasn't sure which was worse. You joke when you're uncomfortable, he said. I laughed immediately. Wow, look at you analyzing me. Should I lie down for this or? You deflect when things get real. Or maybe I just don't like you. You don't have to like me. Good, because I don't. A pause. Then. That's not true. I blinked. Excuse me. You don't dislike me. You're very confident for someone who doesn't know me. I know enough. That's concerning. It's accurate. I stood up abruptly. Because sitting, there felt like a bad idea. Because staying still made it easier for him to see things I didn't want him to. Because distance felt safer. You're leaving, he said. Yes. Why? Because you're being weird. I've been consistent. That's the problem. I started walking. Vast. Sharp turns. No direction. Just movement. He followed. Of course he did. You don't have to do that, I said over my shoulder. Yes, I do. No, you don't. Yes, I do. Why? Silence. I slowed slightly. Not stopping. Just less fast. Why? I repeated. He caught up to me easily. Too easily. Matching my pace like it meant nothing to him. Like everything about me was already predictable. Because you don't take care of yourself, he said. There it was again. That answer. Simple. Annoying. True. I take care of myself, I snapped. You don't eat properly. I eat. You forget. I don't forget. You ignore it. I stopped. Turned. Looked at him. You don't get to say things like that, I said quietly. His gaze didn't waver. Why not? Because you don't know what it's like. To what? To be fine. The word felt wrong the moment it left my mouth. Too sharp. Too forced. Too fake. Elias tilted his head slightly, studying me in that way I hated. That way that made me feel like I wasn't as put together as I pretended to be. You're not fine, he said. I laughed. Of course I did. Because that's what I do. Wow, I said, shaking my head. You're really committed to this whole saving me from myself thing. I'm not trying to save you. Then what are you doing? A pause. Longer this time. He looked at me like he was deciding something. Staying, he said. That word. That one word. Hit harder than anything else he could have said. I looked away first. Because I always do when things get too real. People don't stay, I muttered. He stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough. I do. I swallowed. Hard. Yeah, I said softly, for now. Because that's how it always goes. People stay. Until they don't. And somehow, that almost felt worse than being alone in the first place. I started walking again. Slower this time. Less like I was running. More like I was thinking. And for once, he didn't say anything. Didn't push. Didn't analyze. He just walked beside me. Quiet. Steady. There. And that. That was the most dangerous thing of all. Because silence with him didn't feel empty. It felt safe. And I didn't know what to do with that. It started with rain. Not dramatic, cinematic rain, the kind that pours all at once and makes everything feel like a movie scene. No, this was worse. A steady, relentless drizzle that soaked through everything slowly, like it had all the time in the world. Which, apparently, it did. And so did he. You're not dressed for this. I didn't look at him. I didn't plan on being in it. That's not how weather works. Thank you, Elias. I was under the impression I could negotiate with the sky. It doesn't listen. Neither do you. A pause. Then. No. Of course. We were halfway down a street I didn't recognize, the kind lined with closed shops and dim lights that flickered just enough to be annoying. I was soaked. Completely. Hair clinging to my face, clothes heavy, shoes making that unpleasant squelching sound with every step. I hated everything about this moment. Especially the fact that he looked completely unaffected. Dry. Composed. Unfair. You're not even wet, I accused. I am. You're not. I am. You're lying. I'm not. I narrowed my eyes at him. You don't even look uncomfortable. I'm not. Of course you're not. I stopped walking abruptly, turning toward him with a frustrated exhale. This is your fault. How? You're here. That's not a reason. It is when everything goes wrong around you. That's not accurate. It feels accurate. He studied me for a second longer than necessary. Then, You're cold. I'm fine. You're shaking. I'm dramatic. That's not the same thing. Before I could respond, he stepped closer. Too close. Close enough that I felt it before I fully processed it. The shift. The space disappearing. The air changing. What are you doing? I asked. His jacket was already coming off. You're cold. I said I'm fine. You're not. I don't need. He draped it over my shoulders before I could finish. I froze. It was warm. Too warm. Too immediate. Like stepping into something I wasn't prepared for. I don't need this, I said, but my voice came out quieter than I intended. Yes, you do. I can take care of myself. I know. Then stop acting like I can't. I'm not. I looked up at him. Really looked. Because something about the way he said that. It wasn't dismissive. It wasn't controlling. It was certain. Then what are you doing? I asked. A pause. Helping. That word shouldn't have affected me. It shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. I tightened my grip on the jacket, even as I tried to shrug it off. I didn't ask for help. I know. Then why? Because you needed it. I let out a small laugh. Sharp. Defensive. Wow, you really don't respect boundaries, do you? I do. No, you don't. You don't set them. That caught me off guard. I do, I said quickly. No. Yes. No. I opened my mouth. Closed it. Because I didn't. Not really. See, he said quietly. I hated that. Hated how easily he saw through things. I barely understood myself. You're annoying, I muttered, pulling the jacket tighter around me despite myself. You've said that. And I mean it. I know. We started walking again. Slower this time. Closer. The rain didn't stop. But somehow, it didn't feel as cold. You're still following me, I said after a moment. Yes. For how long? As long as necessary. That answer is getting old. It's still true. I glanced at him. His expression hadn't changed. Still calm. Still unreadable. Still there. Why? I asked quietly. He didn't answer immediately. Didn't deflect. Didn't avoid it. Because you'd walk through a storm alone and pretend you're fine, he said. I swallowed. Hard. And that's a problem, I asked. He looked at me then. Really looked. Yes. The word settled somewhere deep. Somewhere I didn't want it to. I looked away quickly, focusing on the street ahead, on anything that wasn't him. Careful, I said lightly. You're starting to sound like you care. A pause. I don't. I nodded. Good, I replied. Because if he did, if any of this was real, then I was already in trouble. And I wasn't sure I knew how to stop it. It happens in the quiet. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a moment that stretches a little too long, until it stops feeling like a moment at all. We weren't supposed to be alone. At least, that's what I told myself. It wasn't planned. It wasn't intentional. It was just circumstance. A late night. A place too still. And him. Always him. You should go home, he said. I leaned back against the wall, arms crossed, pretending I wasn't aware of how close he was standing. I am home. You should sleep. You should mind your business. That is my business. I smiled faintly. You're very dedicated to that. Yes. You ever take a break? No. That sounds exhausting. It's necessary. Silence settled between us. Not awkward. Not comfortable. Just heavy. Like something was building under it. Something neither of us had said out loud yet. I shifted slightly, my shoulder brushing the wall, my hand falling loosely at my side. Too close. He was too close. Always just close enough to matter. You're starring, I said. I'm observing. That's still starring. It's different. How? A reason. I tilted my head. And what's yours? A pause. You. My breath caught. Just for a second. Just enough to annoy me. That's a terrible answer, I said quickly. It's accurate. Still terrible. I pushed off the wall, stepping toward him before I could think better of it. Mistake. Probably. Definitely. The space between us disappeared too easily. Like it had been waiting to. You're very bad at this whole not caring thing, I said quietly. I don't care. Liar. His jaw tightened slightly. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Enough for me. You're pushing, he said. Maybe. You shouldn't. Why not? Another step. Closer. Too close now. Close enough that I could feel the heat of him, steady and controlled in a way that made my pulse anything but. Because you do know where this goes, he said. I smiled. Soft. Dangerous. Then show me. That did it. Something shifted. Not visibly. Not obviously. But I felt it. His control. Cracking. His hand lifted. Slow. Deliberate. Like he was giving himself time to stop. He didn't. His fingers brushed lightly against my wrist. Barely there. But enough. My breath hitched. Traitor. You should step back, he said. I didn't. You first. A pause. Longer this time. He looked at me like he was deciding something. Something important. Something dangerous. Then, his hand moved. From my wrist. Up. Slow. Careful. Until his fingers brushed lightly against my jaw. My heart stuttered. Then raced. This is a bad idea, he said quietly. I swallowed. Then why aren't you stopping? Another pause. Closer now. His thumb brushing just slightly along my skin. Not enough. Too much. Because you're not, he said. That felt like something. Something real. Something I wasn't ready for. If I kiss you, I whispered, are you going to stop me? Silence. Then, yes. I smiled. Because of course. Liar. I leaned in slightly. Just enough. Just to see. He didn't move. Didn't step back. Didn't stop me. But he didn't close the distance either. We stayed there. Suspended. Balanced on something fragile and dangerous, and very, very real. My breath brushed against his hand still against my jaw. The world narrowed down to this one moment. This one choice. And then, he pulled back. Not abruptly. Not harshly. Just enough. Just in time. The space returned. Too fast. Too empty. This doesn't happen, he said. I let out a soft laugh, even as my chest tightened. Pretty sure it just did. No, he said, it doesn't happen again. There it was. The line. Drawn clearly between us. I nodded slowly. Right. Because that's how it always goes. Almost. But not quite. I stepped back fully this time, creating distance before he could. Because I wasn't going to be the one left standing there wondering what could have happened. Good call, I said lightly. Would have been a terrible idea. Yes. But his voice wasn't as steady as before. And that was the problem. Because if it was a mistake, then why did it feel like something I already missed? Even though it never really happened at all. I made a decision the next morning. A very mature, very reasonable decision. I was going to act like nothing happened. Nothing being the almost kiss. The one that didn't happen. The one that absolutely did. The one I was definitely not thinking about. Good morning. I didn't look up. Is it? Yes. I'll be the judge of that. Elias didn't respond. Of course he didn't. He never rose to bait, which made it significantly harder to annoy him. I grabbed my coffee, taking a long sip like it might reset my brain. It didn't. It just reminded me that he knew exactly how I liked it. Which was another problem. You're avoiding eye contact, he said. I'm drinking coffee. You're hiding. I'm caffeinating. That's not the same thing. It is when I say it is. I walked past him. Calm. Unbothered. Completely normal. He followed. Because of course he did. You're different today, he added. I stopped. Turned. Smiled. Bright. Convincing. Wow, you noticed, I'm honored. You're deflecting. I'm thriving. You're lying. I'm coping. That made him pause. Just slightly. Just enough. Why? He asked. The question hit sharper than I expected. Not what. Not how. Why? I tilted my head, keeping my expression light. Why what? Why pretend it didn't happen? There it was. Direct. Unavoidable. Annoying. Because it didn't, I said easily. He didn't react. Didn't argue. Didn't correct me. That's not true. I let out a small laugh. Wow, bold of you to disagree with me about my own life. It involves me. Barely. Silence. I moved again, heading toward the door, needing space before the conversation got too real. Too close. Too honest. You're running, he said. I didn't stop. Walking, I corrected. Faster than usual. Motivated. Avoiding. Busy. He caught up to me easily. Of course he did. This isn't going to work, he said. I turned sharply, frustration finally slipping through. What is? Pretending. I'm not pretending. You are. You don't know that. I do. I stared at him. Really stared. Okay, I said slowly. Let's say I am. Why do you care? That was the real question. He didn't answer immediately. Didn't deflect. Didn't avoid it. I don't, he said. I smiled. Soft. Sharp. Liar. His jaw tightened. Just slightly. Then why are you still here? I pressed. A pause. Longer this time. Because you are. That wasn't an answer. Not really. That doesn't make sense, I said. It does. It doesn't. It's enough. I shook my head, exhaling sharply. You're impossible. You've said that. And I mean it. I know. We stood there for a moment. Too close. Too quiet. Too aware. You shouldn't have let it happen, I said finally. There it was. The truth. The one I didn't want to say. I know, he replied. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. I swallowed, my chest tightening in a way I didn't like. Then what is this? I asked. His gaze held mine. Steady. Unmoving. A mistake. That shouldn't have hurt. It wasn't even wrong. Right, I said softly. Of course it was. Then let's not make it again. A pause. Yes. Agreement. Simple. Clean. Safe. I nodded once. Turned. Walked away. Because that's what you do with mistakes. You learn from them. You avoid them. You don't repeat them. But as I stepped outside, the air colder than it should have been, I realized something I didn't want to admit. If that was a mistake, then why did it feel like the only thing that had been real? The truth didn't arrive with a warning. It didn't knock, didn't hesitate, didn't give me time to prepare. It just slipped into my life like it had always been there. Waiting. I wasn't looking for it. That's what I keep telling myself. Because if I had been searching, maybe I could have braced for it. Maybe it wouldn't have felt like the ground disappeared under me. I was in his place. Again. Which, in hindsight, should have been my second mistake. The first was trusting him. He wasn't there. That was the only reason I went in. That's what I told myself. The space felt different without him. Less controlled. Less him. But still precise. Still organized. Still careful in a way that made everything feel intentional. Nothing out of place. Except one file. It wasn't obvious. Not really. Just slightly misaligned. Barely noticeable. Unless you were looking too closely. I was. But I saw it anyway. I should have ignored it. I should have left. I should have respected boundaries I never properly set in the first place. I didn't. My fingers hovered over it for a second, then closed around it. Don't. I froze. The word hit like something physical. Sharp. Immediate. Too late. I turned slowly. Elias stood in the doorway. Still. Controlled. Watching me in that way that made everything feel too exposed. Don't what? I asked quietly. His gaze flicked to the file in my hand. Then back to me. Open it. I let out a small, humorless laugh. Well, that's not suspicious at all. He didn't move. Didn't step closer. Didn't try to take it from me. Which somehow made it worse. What is it? I asked. A pause. Something you shouldn't see like this. Like what? Without context. I tilted my head slightly. You're not selling this very well. I'm not trying to. Of course he was. I looked down at the file. Then back at him. Tell me not to open it again, I said. Silence. Tell me not to, I repeated. His jaw tightened. Just slightly. Don't. I opened it. Because of course I did. At first, it didn't make sense. Pages. Notes. Details. Then I saw my name. Ivy Bennett. My stomach dropped. I flipped faster. Heart racing now. Breathing uneven. Schedules. Patterns. Habits. Observations. The way I moved. The places I went. The things I said. The things I didn't. Everything. You were watching me, I said. Not a question. Yes. Simple. Clean. Devastating. For how long? A pause. From the beginning. The words hit harder than anything else. From the beginning. Not recently. Not after. From the start. I let out a soft laugh. Because of course I did. That's impressive, I said. It sounded wrong. Felt worse. You were tracking me. Yes. You knew everything. Yes. Each answer landed like something breaking. Quiet, but irreversible. Was any of it real? I asked. There it was. The question I didn't want to ask. The one I definitely didn't want answered. Silence. I nodded slowly. Right. Because silence with him was never empty. It was always an answer. I closed the file carefully. Too carefully. Like I could undo it. Like I could pretend I hadn't seen any of it. You lied to me. No. I looked up sharply. No. I didn't lie. You just didn't tell me the truth. Yes. I let out another quiet laugh. That's the same thing. It's not. It is when it breaks me. That stopped him. Just for a second. Just long enough for me to see it. Regret. I swallowed hard, my grip tightening slightly on the file. Everything you know about me, I started. Then stopped. Because I didn't want to finish that sentence. Was it just part of the job? I forced out. Another pause. Another silence. Another answer. Yes. Something inside me cracked. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough. I nodded once. Slow. Controlled. Okay. Because I didn't trust myself to say anything else. I stepped past him. Didn't look back. Didn't stop. Because if I did, I might fall apart. And I refused to do that in front of him. Not after he had already seen everything else. I didn't confront him. Not properly. Not the way people do in stories. Loud, emotional, words thrown like weapons until something finally breaks clean. No. I did something worse. I went quiet. You're not answering me. I stared at my phone, watching the message sit there, unread even though I'd already seen it 3 times. Elias. Of course it was him. Always him. I flipped the phone over. Face down. Like that would make it disappear. It didn't. The silence I gave him wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a statement. It was just absence. And somehow, that felt heavier than anything I could have said. You're avoiding something. I didn't look up. Or someone. I did look up then. Because apparently, the universe thought I needed to suffer in stereo. My friend watched me with a knowing expression that made me instantly defensive. I'm not avoiding anything. You just stopped mid-sentence and haven't blinked in 30 seconds. I'm thinking. You're spiraling. Same thing. It's not. It is when I say it is. She sighed. Who is he? I froze. What? The guy you're not talking about. I'm not talking about anyone. You just double negatived your way into guilt. I did not. You did. I grabbed my coffee, taking a long sip just to avoid answering. It didn't help. Nothing helped. He hurt you, she said softly. That landed too close. I laughed. Of course I did. Because that's what I do. Wow, I said lightly. That's a bold assumption based on absolutely nothing. It's based on your face. My face is fine. Your face looks like you're trying not to cry and also trying to punch someone. That's very specific. I'm very observant. I looked away. Because I couldn't hold that gaze. Not when she was right. He didn't hurt me, I said finally. Not entirely a lie. Not entirely the truth. What did he do then? I hesitated. Just for a second. He knew things. That's it. I shook my head slowly. No. She waited. Didn't push. Didn't interrupt. Just waited. And somehow, that made it worse. He was watching me, I said quietly. The words felt strange out loud. Too real. Too final. Her expression shifted immediately. Concern. Confusion. Anger. What do you mean watching you? I mean, I swallowed. He knew everything before I even told him, before I even realized it myself. That's not normal, Ivy. I know. Is he dangerous? I almost laughed. Because that wasn't the right question. Yes, I said. But not in the way she meant. Then, why are you sitting here instead of running in the opposite direction? That was the question. The one I didn't have an answer to. Because I already tried that, I admitted. And I keep coming back. Her brows pulled together. Why? I exhaled slowly, staring down at the table like it might give me something solid to hold on to. Because he didn't just lie to me, I said. He understood me. Silence. That doesn't make it okay, she said gently. I know. Then why does it sound like you're trying to justify it? I'm not. I paused. I just don't know how to hate him. There it was. The truth. The one I didn't want to say. Because hating him would have been easier. Cleaner. Safer. But I couldn't. And that was the problem. Because if I couldn't hate him, then I still cared. And if I still cared, then this wasn't over. No matter how much I wanted it to be. I picked up my phone again. Stared at his message. You need to talk to me. I should have ignored it. Deleted it. Blocked him. Moved on. Instead, my fingers hovered over the screen. Because no matter how much it hurt, no matter how much I knew better, there was still a part of me that wanted to hear his voice. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. I didn't plan to go. That's what I told myself as I grabbed my keys. That's what I told myself as I ignored the warning in my chest. That's what I told myself as I drove straight toward him anyway. This wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't about closure. It definitely wasn't about love. It was about answers. At least, that's what I told myself. The place was wrong the moment I arrived. Too quiet. Too still. The kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like something is waiting. You're late. I turned sharply. Elias stood just inside the doorway, like he had been there the entire time. Of course he had. I didn't say I was coming, I replied. You came. That doesn't mean anything. It means something. I exhaled sharply, stepping inside before I could second-guess it. Don't start acting like you understand me. I don't act. Right, you just watch. The words landed harder than I intended. Sharper. More honest. He didn't argue. Didn't deny it. I told you not to come here alone, he said instead. I blinked. Excuse me. You shouldn't be here. I let out a disbelieving laugh. Wow, that's rich. You don't get to control where I go. This isn't about control. Then what is it about? A pause. Timing. That didn't make sense. Stop talking in riddles, I snapped. Just tell me what's going on. He didn't answer. That's when I noticed it. The shift. The tension in his posture. The way his attention wasn't just on me. It was everywhere. You're not listening, he said quietly. To what? I demanded. Everything. And then, something moved. A sound. Soft. Subtle. Behind me. My breath caught. Elias moved faster than I could think. 1 second, he was across the room. The next, he was right in front of me. Don't turn around, he said. Of course I did. Bad decision. Too late. A figure. Close. Too close. Everything happened at once. Elias stepped between us. A sharp movement. A struggle. A sound I didn't fully register until. Blood. Elias. Stay back. His voice was sharp. Controlled. Not looking at me. The world narrowed. Too fast. Too loud. Too much. Get out, he said. I'm not leaving. Go. I didn't. Of course I didn't. I stepped forward and saw it. The blood. Dark. Spreading. My chest tightened. Hard. You're hurt, I said. I'm fine. You're bleeding. I said I'm fine. He was. I grabbed his arm before I could stop myself. Don't lie to me. His gaze snapped to mine. And for a second, just a second, the control slipped. I'm not lying, he said quietly. That wasn't reassuring. You should have told me, I said. About what? This. I gestured around us. Everything. A pause. I was going to. When? Later. I let out a sharp laugh. There's always a later with you. Silence. I came here for answers, I said. You got them. Not the ones I wanted. No. We stood there for a moment. Too close. Too real. Too much. You should have stayed away, I said quietly. I tried. That's not good enough. I know. That hurt more than anything else. Because he wasn't fighting me. Wasn't arguing. Wasn't defending himself. He was just accepting it. I hate you, I said. It wasn't true. Not completely. I know. Of course he did. I stepped back slowly, creating distance. Needing it. You should go, he said. I didn't move. Go, he repeated. This time, I listened. But not because I wanted to. Because if I stayed, I wasn't sure I would leave again. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. I didn't go back right away. That would have been too easy. Too predictable. Too me. Instead, I waited. A day. Then 2. Then 3. Each one felt longer than it should have. Quieter. Emptier. Like something important had been removed, and no one bothered to replace it. I told myself I needed time. To think. To breathe. To not make another mistake. But the truth. I was scared. Not of him. Never of him. Of what I would say. Of what I would feel. Of how easily I might fall back into something I didn't fully understand. You're doing it,